faithfully conveying value and interpreting great books from around the world. Hi there, this is Sally Book Talks. Today, I'm going to interpret the book The Innocent Anthropologist for you. This book is British anthropologist Nigel Barley's notes from his fieldwork in Cameroon, Africa. So, what exactly is anthropology? Anthropology is all about studying humans. At its core, it blends natural sciences, humanities, and social sciences. The key areas of study are twofold: human biology and culture, and how human traits originated and evolved. Like, what are human physical traits? How do people act? What differences are there between different human groups? Anthropologists are always keen on researching different social cultures. For instance, some researchers hang out in mental hospitals, observing secretly, others dig, interviewing criminals daily, and some just chill in bathhouses chatting with attendants to study how different groups behave and think. I've even done a bit of anthropology myself. Spent a whole day at Hong Kong's Victoria Harbor watching tourists strike all sorts of crazy poses with the Bruce Lee statue, trying to find cultural significance. To most folks, this approach might look weird, but it's anthropology's core and most vital research method. For anthropologists, there's a specific word for this: fieldwork. And fieldwork comes from the English phrase field work. It's about hands-on research in the field, a qualitative method. Basically, anthropologists dive into a community, hanging out with people through observation, chats, and experiences to get firsthand info over time. Ever since the big shot Malinowski pushed fieldwork, anthropologists ditched the armchair researcher label and hit the field, becoming like wandering practitioners. So today's book, The Innocent Anthropologist, is kind of a funny light take on fieldwork. Even if you're not an anthropology expert, you can breeze through it. The author, Nigel Barley, is a Brit anthropologist with a PhD from Oxford, and he used to be the curator at the British Museum's ethnography department. In his own words, his journey was pretty ordinary. Trained at prestigious universities, stumbled into teaching by chance, living a monastic academic life. Seeking change and to enrich his academic legacy, he decided to venture into Cameroon's mountains to the Dowayo tribe for his first fieldwork, which is how The Innocent Anthropologist began. The book has two parts. The first half, Notes from a Mud Hut, documents Barley's 18 months with an indigenous tribe in Cameroon, Africa. With humor, he chronicles life alongside the Dowayo tribe in Cameroon's mountains, revealing their customs and daily realities. The second half, Return to Dowayo land, continues because he hadn't witnessed their most vital ritual, circumcision. When he returned to the Dowayo tribe for round two, though more experienced, he still faced hilariously awkward situations. The author cleverly uses innocent in the title. In English, it means naive, but can also imply ignorance. It also carries connotations of blamelessness. Throughout the book, innocent conveys layered meanings. The author's ignorance yet fearlessness toward fieldwork challenges, his sense of undeserved misfortune, and his reflection on anthropology's naive biases. Today, I'll unpack this work in three parts, based on its core content. Part 1, The Anthropologist Out of His Element. Part 2, Those Mysterious Dowayo People. Part 3, The Author's Reflections on Anthropology. So let's begin with Part 1. Since anthropologists cross regions and cultures for fieldwork, cultural disorientation is inevitable. But back then, Barley didn't consider this. He was single-mindedly focused on diving into fieldwork ASAP. So where to go? Barley agonized between Oceania, South America, Africa, and Asia. He realized South America meant navigating volatile politics. Oceania was easy but unoriginal. India was fascinating, but learning the language could take 5 years. Indonesia was politically unstable then, and East Timor was engulfed in civil war and famine. After weighing options, he settled on studying the overlooked pagan mountain tribe of the Dowayo in Cameroon, Africa. Why? because records showed they had fascinating totem worship of glory, unique religion, language, and even mummies. He went through hoops, securing research funding, permits, and visas. Within a week, he packed and rushed off. What surprises awaited him? The first major challenge, food. Upon arriving in West Africa, Barley was hit by this intense smell, musky heat mixed with wild, raw earthiness. It killed his appetite instantly. Up in the mountains, things got worse. The Dowayo worshipped millet, using it to pay debts, brew beer, believing other foods caused illness. They raised cattle but didn't milk or eat them, reserving them solely for dowries. Disappointed, Barley decided to raise chickens himself, dreaming of fresh eggs. What he got instead was his local assistant proudly announcing, "Master, I just found the hens laid eggs. I slaughtered them to save their energy." Turns out Dowayo found eggs disgusting. They'd ask, "Don't you know where those fall out from?" So Barley's egg dream died. He surrendered, surviving on hardtack and canned peanut butter from supply stations. At least he could drown sorrows in millet beer like locals. But honestly, not exactly pleasant. To honor guests, Dowayo had lice-covered dogs lick gourd ladles clean before serving beer. Another time, Barley struggled to eat fan coconut, a peach-like fruit, so a kind old lady brought pre-chewed pulp, which he devoured. Only later did he learn she'd chewed it for him. Beyond food struggles, disease haunted Barley constantly. Despite months of pre-trip vaccines causing fevers and vomiting, he caught malaria almost immediately in Africa, reduced to a sobbing wreck. Pastor Brown gave him meds, warning, "Nothing here's guaranteed to work." Terrifying Barley. Worse yet, he battled rooms full of bats during fever dreams, and these bats all carried rabies. But that wasn't the end. Later, hepatitis knocked Barley down. After gamma globulin injections, he couldn't move for 2 full days. His legs weren't spared either. In a car accident, he damaged his teeth. When seeking a dentist in town, someone unexpectedly yanked out 2 perfectly healthy front teeth. Turns out, the guy wasn't a dentist, just a watch repair technician. When he finally saw a real dentist, he got fitted with wobbly plastic dentures at a steep price. When the dentures broke, Barley DIY repaired them using twigs and a hairdryer to glue them back. Diseases might heal, but those dentures became a permanent souvenir from the Dowayo. Beyond physical suffering, there was also relentless mental isolation. As an outsider, Barley was unwelcome from day one. He said you could only hope to be seen as a harmless fool who brought job opportunities to villagers. Barley lived for trips to town to collect mail. Only then could he freely speak English, blast music, and chat about topics beyond millet and cattle. He borrowed stacks of trashy novels from his pastor friend. He credited these novels with keeping him sane through endless dull nights. Whenever loneliness struck, grabbing a novel made him feel he could endure longer. Language barriers posed another huge challenge. Most Africans effortlessly switched between 2 or 3 languages learned through immersion. But for field workers, this was incredibly tough. Worse, Dowayo had 4 tones, like Chinese, with sliding tones linking syllables. After months struggling, Barley only managed daily repetitions of, "Is your sky clear today?" "Very clear." "And how's your body?" These simple exchanges were like us asking, "Have you eaten?" "Yes, and you?" Any complex sentence attempts ended in embarrassment. Like when he said, "Sorry, I'm cooking meat at home," but shocked Dowayo heard, "Sorry, I'm off to sleep with the blacksmith's wife." Plus, bureaucratic red tape and financial crises constantly landed Barley in embarrassing jams. To keep his research going, he had to navigate every checkpoint: embassies, immigration, police stations, county chiefs, village heads, tribal chiefs. Most officials acted all high and mighty, making him fill out endless pointless forms. Even after multiple trips, things might still fall through. He once tried explaining anthropology with a passionate educational spiel to officials, but facing lazy, arrogant bureaucrats, he'd default to clumsy replies. It's my job, he'd say. But banked aways froze his funds, forcing church loans and mountains of shameful debt. His dear Dowayo friends kept milking him for goods, driving him to wire British colleagues, begging for handouts. The author's fieldwork tales, vibrant and never dry. But it shatters any romantic illusions of fieldwork as some pastoral idyll. In Cameroon, you haul stubborn monkeys to movies, buying their tickets, get teeth yanked, catch malaria and hepatitis, drive off cliffs, get extorted. Yet life marches on. This innocent anthropologist stumbled through it all, conquering illness, loneliness, discomfort, ignorance, even learning to scheme. Returning home, European civilization felt alien. Through it all, Barley bravely aired anthropology's dirty laundry, confessing the field's awkward truths. Fieldwork studies live by documenting subjects. This book's no exception. So what exactly was life like for those mysterious Dowayo? Beyond diet, language, and social roles, the author spotlights customs like circumcision, skull rituals, sacrifices, and witchcraft. First, let's examine a practice that fascinates anthropologists: circumcision. The Dowayo saw hospital circumcisions as shameful. They didn't cut enough. Their ritual was horrifying, slicing open the entire penis. Uncircumcised boys were seen as tainted by femininity, barred from male activities, and buried with women after death. Boys aged 10 to 12 may undergo circumcision, with the whole village's boys joining in the ceremony. The circumcision ritual symbolizes death and rebirth, transforming boys from their imperfect newborn state into complete men. The circumcision ritual is a detailed process. First, the boy's brother-in-law decorates his body, then the boys roam the countryside, hosted by various households. Once heavy rain falls, the circumcision can begin. They're stripped naked at a crossroads, taken to a riverside grove for circumcision, and the boys must not cry. Of course, circumcision has many dangers, like infections from reusing the same knife. Some men lose their genitals, causing low birth rates and even worse. With no proper doctors and poor sanitation, many boys die after circumcision from gangrene, dehydration, or pneumonia. International human rights activists argue this cultural tradition causes major physical and mental trauma. So why are anthropologists so fascinated by circumcision? Barley thinks it's because anthropologists see foreign groups as totally different, but linking their rituals to their own lives reveals shared human traits. For example, the Dowayo hope circumcision's pain and cruelty gives boys a rebirth into more complete men. In a way, this echoes the saying, heaven will assign great tasks, first testing resolve, toiling the body, and starving the flesh. This is what anthropologists find as common humanity through African circumcision rituals. Similarly, skull rituals are another traditional Dowayo custom, akin to circumcision's cultural context. The author didn't witness circumcision but saw skull rituals. As the name hints, it's venerating dead heads. After death, heads are cut off and placed in jars. Male heads go to jungle behind huts, female heads to birth villages. Locals believe dead spirits may haunt relatives years later, causing illness or refusing reincarnation, so skull rituals calm these spirits. These rituals are usually held in years of abundant millet harvest. A key role in the skull ritual is the clown. Only they can touch the skulls, and one clown must be the deceased's brother. During the ritual, skulls are placed outside the village, male and female piles. They slaughter livestock, smear excrement on skulls. The host chops a chicken's head, sprays blood on skulls, then clowns throw filth on the crowd for laughs. After the filth tossing, clowns wash the skulls while the host jumps constantly nearby. The whole ritual feels ghostly and mystical. The Dowayo view witchcraft with casualness, even indifference. They think only disease-causing witchcraft is bad. Other kinds can strengthen your body or help farming. For diagnosing illness, they use divination, not medicine. The most common divination rubbing a plant called zabuto while chanting possible diseases. When the zabuto snaps while rubbing, whatever disease was just chanted is the diagnosis. Honestly, this witchcraft feels straight out of Harry Potter. At moments like this, Barley feels real sympathy for the Dowayo. Relying on witchcraft for healing, pure luck, mostly pointless. When sick, they might die, scared and suffering, yet still worship witchcraft fiercely. For example, they're convinced only gods make rain, helped by the chief's toolkit: cow horns, uncastrated ram's wool, iron rings, and a stone from ancestors millennia ago. Truth is, it's just a kid's marble. The real kicker: finding this rainstone hidden in mountain caves at 2,000 meters. But only then will rains come. Sounds downright ridiculous, right? Through observation and participation, the author reveals the Dowayo worldview and values. Some seem ignorant and absurd to modern eyes. Some show charm and annoyance through their words and actions. Some reflect stubborn devotion to traditions. They live surrounded by taboos. For instance, men can't draw well water, women can't weave cloth. They're sexually unrestrained, women's adultery is tolerated, men take pride in seducing others' wives. They also love exploiting others, with a nasty habit of profiting off people. Since many people had never been to the city and there was no photographer in the village, they'd never had their photos taken. When they pulled out ID cards, the pictures were all of the same person. And, um, but Barley didn't view them with prejudice or disgust. In the second part of the book, Return to Dowayo Land, the author returned to the village. The Dowayo rushed to greet him, bringing gifts, and a limping old woman affectionately touched him. These experiences brought a balancing effect to the whole work from another angle. In Barley's account, we see a group not simplistically labeled as ignorant and savage. They're naive, simple, hospitable, lives equal to ours, deserving thought. Though this work mainly recounts the author's tribal experiences, seeming funny and satirical, he's actually reflecting on research blind spots and academic biases in anthropology. Next, we'll unpack a few questioned prejudices. First, the author reflects on the independence of fieldwork. Anthropologists think they can detach from subjects and be pure observers. But in reality, when you're exoticizing them, they're exoticizing you too. An anthropologist entering the field is like a pebble tossed into a lake, always causing ripples. The author found that from the start, the Dowayo studied this intruding outsider. They thought a long-term white resident was a reincarnated sorcerer whose true skin was black. At bedtime, Barley would supposedly take off his white skin and hang it on the wall, while the Dowayo schemed away to trick money out of Barley's pocket, eager to squeeze him dry. Those superstitious about witchcraft for healing, they'd still seek Barley's medical help in crises. Of course, treating patients inevitably influenced them, violating the anthropologist's intent to just observe. Meanwhile, Barley was also influenced by the primitive people during fieldwork. He learned to shout like Africans, his words and actions growing coarser, as if ditching his old British gentleman self. Thus, fieldwork isn't a fully independent, objective process. It demands humility and clarity, serious thought on research conditions, and telling readers in detail to reveal limitations. Second, the author criticizes anthropologists' biases toward foreign cultures. During fieldwork, Barley met another American anthropologist who came to Africa pitying locals. To preserve local dignity, he refused to hire laundry workers, gardeners, or repairmen, living equally in slums. To appear culturally respectful, he skipped Christmas and forced his family to speak Swahili. But how'd that turn out? His approach angered Africans. Locals felt wealthy Americans should provide jobs and welfare. His slum dwelling came off as hypocrisy. Ultimately, this anthropologist failed to complete his research. Likewise, as a Western intellectual, Barley constantly wondered, are we truly wiser than them? Should we really be so confident judging another culture through our Western lens? Barley believed humanity is anthropology's core concern. He never mocked Africans in his book. He mocked anthropologists' know it all assumptions. Our job is showing how people live, not how they should live. Third, the author's experience shows anthropologists sometimes obsess over exotic mysteries, often just projecting assumptions. During his second Dowayo trip, Barley thought he was on the verge of a groundbreaking discovery. He heard Dowayo say neighboring Niger people lacked nipples. Finding this undocumented trait could make him famous. After huge effort, reaching Nairi land, Barley saw nippleless people and asked eagerly, "Born this way or cut off for beauty?" The response, roaring laughter. "Of course born this way. Who'd cut their nipples off?" It was just genetic mutation, not the cultural symbol Barley imagined. Blindly chasing major discoveries can derail research, hurting anthropology. So, anthropologists aren't satisfied with just blindly collecting exotic customs. It's more about cultural self reflection. As Barley writes at the end, all these experiences make you see yourself in a whole new light. The author's reflections reveal the endearing and admirable qualities behind anthropologists' innocence. All right, that wraps up our sharing of this book's content for you. Looking back on this book, the author said it's largely a book for young people. Young folks find the world thrilling. They want to explore everything fearlessly. If you're in fieldwork or preparing for it, Barley's experiences and reflections might offer valuable insights. All right, that concludes our interpretation of The Innocent Anthropologist for you. Keynotes are below the audio. See you tomorrow.